When hope is gone, undo this lock and send me forth on a moonlit walk. Release restraint level 0. Hey kids, wanna see a dead body?
Hi guys, this is the Void of the Ravenclaw. Welcome back to another fanfiction story. If you like this type of content, smash the like button and subscribe for future updates that I do post on my community tab frequently. Now, let's continue where we last left off in our story. Well, it looks like he's long gone. Let's go back. We have to report back anyways. Connor smashed his fist on the ground, cracking it, out of pure frustration. Calm yourself, Connor. Whatever, let's just get going. With that said, Connor blasted off and began flying back to the Young Justice headquarters. Friend Supergirl, are you alright? I'm fine, Star. I wasn't expecting this Internal to be this good. Yes, indeed, villain Internal was good, but I don't think he's evil. It is true that he's killed some Earthlings that are considered criminals. I believe he's just misunderstood. At least that's what the first impression I got from meeting him. At the end of the day, Star, it really doesn't matter. Even if he's not necessarily evil, he's a villain, and villains need to be brought down regardless. Let's catch up with Superboy. I know Black Canary is not going to like this. We encountered Internal against her orders. We were ordered just to leave him alone, but you know the brat, always so brash. We only came because Superboy was so eager to face him again. As we fanned to Izuku reappeared somewhere in the city. Izuku took notice of all the different types of owls that are perched on the street lights as a white owl flew around Izuku to get his attention as it flew into a very old, rundown library. Izuku followed the strange owl to see where it leads. The moment he passed the threshold of the library, he felt a dimension shift, like he's in another place entirely. The library hasn't changed one bit, the interior. It feels like this library is not on Earth anymore. The interior of the library is quite intact and well maintained. It looks like more of a personal library than anything else. As he continued to follow the owl, or the sounds of the bird flapping his wings, until he came across paths with a blonde woman in a business suit with glasses, as her eyes were cloudy-like. As she shut her book when she felt him approach. Good, you're here, son of Hera. You seem to have me in a bit of disadvantage, miss. I'm Athena. You of all people should know exactly who I am. That I do, goddess. Take it you brought me here for a reason. You are correct. I'm only here to do my part in the prophecy. That's not surprising, given you Olympians are very strict on your prophecies. that you get from the Oracle? Indeed, we do, and for good reason. But I do not bring you here to have such debates, son of Hera. Internal will be just fine. Lady Artemis. Lady Athena. Very well, internal. I'll keep calling you that. Constantly calling you the son of Hera does get tiring. You'll learn real fast. I'm not much for formalities outside of the proper times when it's appropriate. So what exactly does this prophecy entail? Lady Athena. I'll give you a translation version of the prophecy from the Oracle. It tends to get hard to translate. Usually these prophecies have a double meaning, but I'll give you all the prophecy entails when it's considering you. The mortal destined to die will be reborn from the blood of the Sky Queen, given new life and purpose, as the internal champion is born. Much like his title, will gain immortality through his service to the Sky Queen. He will be the only hope to prevent the destruction of humankind and God alike. Internal champion will do battle to the death. Say god and goddess from a different dimension. He will locate the remaining medallions, and at the end of them, he will lose, as his foe will be awakened from his slumber. That's all I have for you, is have mentioning you in it. Of course, the medallions is part of this prophecy. What are these medallions you speak of? Izuku has a inkling what they are, but he wants to ask the god anyways. The god is a goddess anyways. Taking this very well. Prophecies are not 100. It can be predicted in so different ways, as you already said that yourself. And this isn't the first prophecy with my name attached to it that I've came across. So I'll ask you again, what exactly are these medallions? You said no, internal. You have one in your care. I had a feeling I had one of these medallions once I heard it in that little prophecy. So I'm guessing I'm supposed to collect these medallions that are most likely spread across Earth. Indeed, the god, known as Calypso, from she seems to be some form of dragon-like higher being, maybe a goddess, we're not totally sure. None god or goddess has came across her of yet. She already has 2 of the black medallions in her possession, and you have 1 in your possession that she's unaware of. That leaves the rest of the medallions somewhere out there. Exactly. And I take it Mother had already known about this beforehand. That she did, but she couldn't interfere with the prophecy, so her hands were tied, much like many of us gods and goddesses. The only reason I could interact with in such a manner is because a small part of the prophecy mentioned myself. So clearly there's more to the prophecy that you haven't told me. Yes, the prophecy was quite longer than any other prophecies, that the Oracle has spoke of in a long time. And Apollo is being the quiet type about it for some reason. It's a bit odd though, because the sun god is usually quite talkative, but when it comes to prophecies, he's quite strict on them. It falls under his domain. I take it this is going to be a quest that I'm going to take on. Take the quest? You're a bit confused. Demigod, you have already started. The moment you got your hands on that black medallion is the moment your quest actually began. You just didn't know of it at that time. I had a feeling I would have to cross paths with that woman again, but I don't understand why me. I'm not super powerful. Yes, I am immortal, and my magic is adequate to my standards, but I'm nowhere near their god tier level. This Calypso, the moment I met her, I could feel the waves of energy she was generating. I can't answer that for you. Only solace I could give you is the theory is they might not be at 100% full power since their sealing, since Calypso was unsealed. That might affect the other one as well. One information I could get on how the Titans sealed these creatures. The seal itself didn't just seal them, it siphoned their powers to put them in a hibernaceous state, like a sleep state. Like a sleep state. I have no doubt this Calypso is not as powerful as she normally would, even though she's had time to recover some of her strength. Other words, I'm screwed. Whatever. I'm not named the Immortal Champion for nothing. And who knows, I might be forced to remove my bracelets. My bracers, or whatever it's called. I've pausing the story. I've heard them being called bracers or bracelets. When it comes to Wonder Woman's, bracelets on her wrist, sealing the majority of her power. Same thing with internal. Let's just continue. I heard that from Hera, that you're quite powerful without those suppressors on. I would be lying to say I wasn't curious. So what happens now? You're gonna get more powerful, of course. As Athena hands several books, as they begin to float in the air and fly downwards into Internal's hands, gently. What are these? These are books. These spell books will help you to continue your magical education. What I've been told, you have an impressive talent for the craft. I might not be the goddess of magic, but I know a few things, and I've collected a few tomes now and then when they caught my eye. Thank you, Lady Athena, for the gifts. Think nothing of it. Unlike my father, I have no hatred towards you. You've never defiled any of my temples or wronged me in any way. This encounter has been most pleasant. I could tell you're very intelligent, not some brute like Ares or Hercules. I might not have a good relationship with Mother. She's still cross because me and sister Artemis were born through our father's mind only. We didn't go through childbirth. You know how Mother is. That doesn't mean we don't have to share the same type of relationship. that I have with Mother. Mother, how you look at it, you're technically my little brother. That makes me your sister. You're as much as my brother as Ares. I would have tried to meet you a long time ago, but before I could, you went into hiding, and I couldn't even find you. Not a single trace. Most impressive. During that time, things were heating up on Mount Olympus, so I figured it'd be my best course of action is to disappear for a while. I did enjoy our little chat, but I believe I have things to do. I have no doubt you have your duties as well as a goddess. That I do. Be very wary, brother. If you cross paths with our sister, Artemis, she's not the biggest fan of males in general. But who knows, she might look past that. Because you're a warrior, you're going to have to prove yourself, of course. I could tell you have the warrior spirit in you. I've checked up on you ever so often before your disappearance, and you still have the same warrior spirit that you did back then. I figure some of you gods and goddesses would check up on me to see if I'm a threat. But to your inquiry, of course, I'm a warrior. Deep down to my core, sister. That's never going to change. Then I'll be taking my leave again. Let's try this again. I'll be taking my leave then. I'll be looking forward to our next meeting, as the library is filled with fog, concealing everything. When the fog finally dissipated, Izuku found himself outside in the middle of the street. Izuku is familiar with gods and goddesses, flair for dramatics when they say goodbye. Izuku could hear the sounds of gunfire. Izuku found Alice still in the midst of combat, attacking several of Two-Face's operations at the same time, engaging a larger force than she originally thought. Izuku clearly noticed a large portion of their numbers aren't Two-Face's men. Izuku noticed several low-tier villains from Japan. Didn't see any of the big hitters that he's more familiar with when it comes to the villain population of Japan. Few did stick out that he's never seen before. At the end of the day, they're still low-tier villains from Japan, with decent quirks, nothing too strong or too weak, but average. For a normal person, they would be a threat, but for someone like Internal, they're nothing but ants. I was hoping you would show up, Internal. You were correct that Two-Face made an alliance with someone. I don't recognize any of these people using these powers they seem to have. They all have quirks. It is a genetic trait that gives you superpowers that humanity has gained. Not in everyone, but majority of population, at least in Japan. It has spread worldwide. It's more prevalent in Japan though. Heavily regulated. You seem to know quite a bit about this subject. Indeed, I am quite knowledgeable on this subject, as you say. I'll help you out here. Izuku tapped the communicator on his ear, turning it on. This is your leader, Internal. Locate my location and send out the Quark Suppress Force upon my location. We have local villains from Japan that need to be suppressed. or cleanse, in other words, kill, is up to your discretion. Alice looks a bit confused by the name of the task force, but kept her thoughts to herself. Not even 5 minutes later, Alice could hear helicopters as she looked up to see several large helicopters hover in the sky as a rope begins to drop, as several soldiers, well, basically SWAT soldiers, start sliding down from the rope, revealing the Corp Suppress Force in SWAT gear, basically what they're wearing, and the emblem of a three-headed dog on their upper right arm, a Hydra, sorry. It would be a Cerberus. Have military-grade helicopters at your disposal. Just a few that I've collected over the years. I do have a few contacts in the U.S. military, alongside with the Japan military. My everyday job deals with the government daily. So you do have a secret identity then? No, Internal is my real identity. I have no need for secret identities, as you say, is just mostly just alibis I go by. The current alibi I'm going by is not my only one, it's just my most recent one that I've been using. Like I said back at your manor, I've lived a very long life. As Izuku walked towards the battle, while Alice stays in the back, so she could order her troops. Alice used to be in the military before she took control over her family, so getting her people to do what she wants is very easy for her. The fact that she has several key figures in the local law enforcement to not interfere between the conflict between the Falcons and Two-Face. Izuku put his hands in his jacket pocket to get a closer view by jumping up on a nearby roof of a building. It's a nice night, isn't it? Izuku did not notice her approach and turned around and block a kick from an unknown female. He was broken out of his inner thoughts about the unknown female as she slammed her fist into his gut, then proceeded to slam a right hook, making Internal slid backwards to the edge of the building. She cut the distance, seeing her opponent near the edge of the building, and simply, as she proceeded to skid to him, and proceeded to kick him with a bicycle handstand kick in his face and chest, as Izuku proceeded to fall off the building and went through several buildings. As he was skidding on the street, he finally stopped, no longer going through any buildings. Grell hopped down and began walking towards Internal, with a smirk on her face. Elle is not getting paid to do this, nor is she under orders. She's doing this on her own accord. She's been looking forward to this meeting for a long time. And she's mostly curious about what type of guy he is. And there's no better way to judge someone's character is through a battle. She's a warrior and the daughter of Darkseid after all. Izuku hopped up to his feet when he finally stopped moving and saw his attacker only smirking at him. For some unknown reason, he doesn't quite understand why she's allowing him to recover like this. Izuku dusts himself off. He wasn't expecting this type of conflict tonight, but with his Cerberus forces helping Alice Falcone on their mission, it should go off without a hitch, regardless of this interruption. Izuku's eyes widen when he sees her eyes glow bright red as a beam. This looks like a beam that shoots out. She has complete control over as the Omega beam begin to move when when internal moved. Of course, the Immortal is unaware of what type of beam this is. It's a beam of energy that she inherited from her father, the Omega beam. He might be immortal, but he has no information on Apocalypse and the man that rules that planet called Darkseid. In this timeline, Darkseid hasn't had any encounters with Superman yet. He knows of planet Earth's existence, but he hasn't set his eyes on it just yet. He's been conquering other planets. He hasn't been to Earth in quite some time ago, where he met that woman, the mother of his daughter, Grell. Izuku might not know what beams of energy she's using, but he could tell it is extremely dangerous, so he did what was his best course of action, and not allow it to hit him, as he began to dodge the beams of energy that seem to have a lock on him. Izuku ran towards Grail, and Flash stepped right behind her, as she gets hit by her own Omega beams, making her go flying into a nearby building. Izuku got himself ready. He knows that attack that she just got hit with won't be enough to take her down. Whatever those beams are, they were clearly able to move on their own and extremely dangerous. Highly doubt her own beams of energy would phase her much, and he was right. As Grell came out of the buildings with a smirk on her face, she wasn't expecting for him to hit her with her own Omega beams. I gotta admit, that was a nice move there. Not a lot of people are that fast to pull that off, or nor have the skill to do so. You seem to know who I am, but I have no idea who you are. If you get lucky, I might tell you. As she got into her fighting stance, Grell charged forward, using her natural speed from both sides of her family. On her mother's side, the Amazon, and on her Amazon ability that she inherited from her mother, natural abilities, and the genes she got from her father, giving her more physical strength. She would if her father was if her father was nothing but a human. After all, she's a hybrid. Demigod and new god hybrid. Izuku met his opponent and instantly cut the distance between them as they engage in a very fast-paced hand-to-hand combat. Each time their fists collided with each other, there was a sonic boom, destroying the nearby buildings. Izuku and Grell would continue to clash back and forth, while having massive smirks on their face as they broke from each other by jumping backwards, as they both slid backwards from the momentum from the jump, without even breaking eye contact with each other. Green and purple would meet well, green and glowing purple would meet glowing red eyes. Eternal eyes would start to glow purple and green as they both charge each other again. Izuku had to dodge a incoming right hook when he got in striking range, and threw out a left hook of his own, only to see his opponent block and proceed to throw out a kick. Eternal foresaw the attack and blocked the kick, then jumped in the air and did a sideward, well, basically a spinning kick, only for Grell to block the kick as well. As Izuku flashed that out of striking range and got into a fighting stance, and slowly approached Grell once again. He hasn't fought someone with such skills in a very long time. He couldn't tell if he's fighting. He could tell instantly he's fighting someone very powerful. He's unsure which species she belongs to. There are several different species on Earth, like the Amazons and the Atlanteans, or some random demigod he hasn't really heard of or seen. He hasn't really been keeping track of all the different demigods that the gods have currently that are still alive. He never really bothered to even look. He really didn't care. Izuku might be old and immortal, but he knows nothing about the new gods out there in outer space. Interesting, not only you are powerful, but you're quite skilled in the art of combat. You're quite skilled yourself. I could tell you've been trained. I would say the same thing, Internal. Let's just say I'm familiar with the Amazons. My mother was quite the Amazon herself during the days she was still alive. So you're Amazon. I finally come across one of the infamous Amazons I've heard so much about over the long life I have had. I have no doubt. I have no doubt you've heard of the Amazons. Because of Wonder Woman, well, of your encounters with Wonder Woman. I am well versed in Amazons, considering Lady Cersei has a bit of a nemesis when it comes to Wonder Woman. According to what I've been told, according to what Cersei said, they both hate each other. I've never actually met the woman, but I've heard she's quite the powerful sorceress, and if you know her, then that would explain your clearly magical talent. So you figured out I was a sorcerer. Kinda hard not to miss, sweetheart. With that display you did in Metropolis, excellent work, by the way. As both warriors rush at each other at the same time, Grell hopped over a medium kick that Internal threw out and tried to elbow him in the face, only to see her attempt to get blocked. The moment she landed on the ground, she merely jumped backwards from a high knee that would have struck her in the face. When she jumped back, she immediately jumped forward and threw out a knee attack of her own, only to see that she hit nothing but air. As both warriors circle around each other without breaking eye contact, keeping in their battle stances, Izuku suddenly backed off as Internal start to take out objects out of a small portal that just appeared out of nowhere. It was a dark and purple portal as he pulled out two weapons. As the portal closed, as he closed the pocket dimension where he keeps all of his weapons. One of the weapons, Eternal throw one of the weapons into the ground right in front of Grell. Internal began to walk towards his opponent while giving out a couple practice swings with his sword as Grell look at Internal, then look at the sword in the ground in front of her. As she simply picked up the blade and pulled it out of the ground and got into a sword stance. You know, Internal. Say, Internal. You know how to show a girl a good time. Curious. I want to see these famous skills of the Amazons. I've heard they have unmatched skills when it comes to swordplay. I'm curious how good you Amazon really are. I'll give you plenty. You don't have to worry about that, hun. And you have good taste. I haven't seen one of these in person before. She couldn't help but marvel at the craftsmanship of the sword she's holding in her hand. It's a long sword. It's a long sword from the Middle Age. She could expect maybe from the Middle Age. She's not specifically sure. It's a one-handed steel sword with a silver guard. And there is some sort of Christian cross engraved in the middle of the guard. Rel immediately recognized these type of swords, Templar blades. And she has no doubt this one was lost in the passage of time. If I remember my history right, this is a Templar sword. How did you get your hands on these, I wonder? Let's just say it fell in my hands. Internal got into his sword stance that he's using in one-handed. He's basically using a one-handed battle stance with his sword that has the same engraving, identifying it as another Templar blade. Actually, it's the twin of the other Templar blade in Grell's hand. Thinking, feeling, there's a story behind these two swords. Maybe if you press me, I might tell you. Touche. She couldn't help but laugh. She did exactly the same thing when he asked for her name, so she figured this was his payback. Izuku flash step and encoded his sword in mana and swung downwards. Grell dodged to the side as she saw a huge gash on the ground where the sword swung. The mark on the ground was almost a block wide, cutting through several buildings. Grell charged forward, even though she's more cautious because of her opponent's initial attack, infusing his sword with mana. She knows when she sees magic. Sorceress has always been a tricky opponent to deal with when she fought people with magic. She fought people with magic before, but clearly Internal is the most skilled so far she's came across. Very likely that he was personally trained by Circes. Grail noticed Eternal's facial expressions would be a tad bit softer when speaking of her, about the sorceress, so she could easily tell they have some sort of bond. That that would that would explain his skills and knowledge of magic if he was taught by her. She has no idea how he got so skilled into hand-to-hand combat with his with his with his hands and with weapons. She's even more curious about this Internal. Grell swung her sword in a downward slash, while Internal swung his sword in a side slash, as their blades collide with each other. As the battle progressed, so did their speed, as sparks are beginning to fly from their weapons, grinding against each other, creating sparks. They were moving so fast, everyone nearby that is currently watching couldn't keep track of their movements, as you could see slashes on the ground being created, and the occasional sonic boom. Suddenly, they both reappeared, with cuts all over their body, as eternal cuts were immediately regenerated a second later. And the same thing with Grail. She's immortal herself. Her immortality did not become active until she got much older. But when it did, she can't be killed the conventional ways, much like Internal over there. They walk different paths to gain their immortality. Internal didn't know this fight would escalate this far, as he could clearly see the damage of their battle is causing. So Izuku opened a portal up right beside him. Follow me if you want to continue this. If we continue this, we might get interrupted by one of the Bat family. And I do not wish for our fun to get interrupted. I'm enjoying myself too much. Will do. You have a point. It would be a shame if someone to interrupt our little get-together. This place does look like a war zone. I have no doubt someone will come sniffing around. But I hope you don't have any ideas of secluding me in an isolated area so you could have your way with me. As she gives him a teasing smirk. Don't be ridiculous. I'm a warrior, not some insect. I'm no common criminal or some psychopathic clown. You might not have any intention to do so, but I might. As she gave him a wink as she walks past him and enters the portal. Izuku sighed to himself. He's had plenty of experience in terms of battle when it comes to the opposite gender. They either fall into two categories: the serious type or the outward flirty type. And this girl of this he doesn't know this girl, but this woman seems to be the flirty type. He's never got close to any of the female warriors he has crossed blades in the past. He's never had such desires to do so. Such carnal desires as lust was lessened to a major degree during his creation, when he was created by his mother using her blood and magic. It's not like he doesn't have such feelings for the female gender. It was never a priority for him to act upon. Izuku has always had his banter between female warriors when he was facing a female opponent, but it usually never developed to anything serious, just occasional flirting, and that's pretty much about it. As he walked through the portal, disappearing from Gotham and reappearing in a desert nearby a oasis that's at least a mile away, as you can see it in a distance. Where exactly are we? Somewhere in Egypt, I believe. Shall we continue, my lady? As he gave her a bow. I think we shall, as she gives him a curtsy, even though she is not wearing a dress. Good sir. Both both of them have smirks on their face, as their smirks disappear from their faces, as they got a little more serious, and bolted towards each other while swinging their blades, while running on the desert floor, as the sand is being kicked up from the movement they were making. Suddenly they stopped moving when they got into a power struggle with their swords grinding against each other. Both went into a slide, Izuku eventually stopping the momentum as he kicked his opponent in the stomach immediately when she got hit. She hopped backwards to get some much needed distance. Grail re-engaged combat. Different sword stance, as she has the sword tip pointed facing downwards to the ground, while her arm was slightly diagonal, making the blade in a diagonal line pointing downwards, as she tightened her grip on the hilt of the sword, and bolted forward and started thrusting her sword repeatedly towards Internal. Internal was slightly surprised by the fast-paced sword thrust, as he was forced to defend each thrust. Her speed only increased, making it a tad bit difficult for Internal to keep up with her, as a boom tube opened up behind them, as they both stopped their assault. There you are, child. Lord Darkseid asked me to fetch you. Well, Internal, it's been a blast. I had fun on our little date. As Grell walked towards Internal and dug the sword back into the ground of the sand, as she grabbed Internal by the collar of his shirt or his suit and planted a kiss on his lips, as she broke contact and just walked past him. It seems like you met a friend, my child. Something like that, Granny, as they both entered the boom tube, disappearing. Colonel just walked towards the sword and pulled it out of the sand and put the two swords back in his pocket dimension. I have a feeling she's going to pop up more occasionally now. That's just lovely. After getting a status report from his secretary, Amber, and finding out both operations went off without a hitch, they had plenty of There are plenty of operations still running in Two-Face's territory. So what they did tonight wasn't enough to lure him out in his little hiding spot. When Eternal got back to the manor, just outside Gotham, he noticed when he entered the study, the lights suddenly shut off. I figured I would get a visit from you in the near future. Batman, we have things we need to talk about. I suppose we do. Izuku sat on his chair behind his desk. You can come out as well. I know you're there, Wonder Woman. Very sharp senses, as Diana revealed herself. as the lights turn on from a single wave of Internal's hand, wrist, basically, a wave. I gotta say, I'm impressed that you located me all the way out here, and you managed to bypass some of my security measures so far. You must be quite. You might know. You must know quite a bit of magic. I'm guessing. The lady here is responsible for that. Indeed I am. We know full well you are a villain. And by knowing that, why are you here? You couldn't be here to ask for my assistance for something. A threat that's recently made herself known. How did you know? You're a demigod yourself, and the fact that I was approached by Lady Athena, and I'm guessing this has something to do with the medallions. Or am I wrong? That's exactly why we're here. I've been overlooking your nightlife, but once this is all finished and done with, you're next on my list. Internal does wave Batman off, not taking his threat seriously. It's not that he's underestimating Bruce. He knows how dangerous Batman can be, but he's immortal. Not much you could do about that. You know the locations of the last 3 medallions? Calypso already has 2 in her possession. I know there's at least 1 more. I know at least 1 is. Don't know where the other one is, though. Where is it? We need to secure it before she finds it. All you need to know, it's safe and secured. It is protected by many of my most complex magical seals. But the other medallions, I'm not sure where it's located at. I'll be able to detect it. It produces a small energy signal that the medallion emanates if I'm nearby. As long as I'm nearby the medallion, I could track it down. But the reason why you came here to ask I guess that's probably one of the main reasons why you wanted to ask for my assistance. It's a smart move on your part. I knew eventually I was going to have to cross paths with her again. Wait, you have met this Calypso? A very long time ago. When I first encountered her, I was still immortal. I believe it was during one of the battles I had with the Persians. Things were much more simpler back then, compared to how things are nowadays. Things sure have changed over the years. Internal has a faraway look in his eyes. You have my cooperation. I'll even help you find these medallions before before she get her grummy hands on it. It would be in our best interest to prevent her from freeing her husband. But if I know how things are going to play out, we're going to most likely fail. I agree, but what do you mean by fail? All you need to know is it has to do with the prophecy. That's all you need to know about it. I can't tell you, but it has to be from Wonder Woman's lips, not mine. Very well. How do we contact you? Here, as Internal slid over one of his cards that has his number on it. Use this number. Internal uses his number when he's acting as like himself, as Internal. He has a different phone for his civilian life. Contact me once you need my assistance with something, or come find me. I'm usually here at the manor. You're being very cooperative, and I find that very suspicious. Allow me to illuminate something to you, Batman. I'm not some power-hungry villain trying to gain power, or bringing chaos wherever I walk. I'm old. I'm very old, and I believe you're aware of that. If your reputation is true. You most likely know that I'm immortal, and you probably track my history down to most probably the beginning, almost the beginning. This whole being a villain thing is just entertainment for me. Think of it as like a hobby. But this Calypso and her husband will most likely put my mother in danger. And considering they're very powerful entities, if they're not goddess and gods themselves. And I can't have that. I am the immortal champion of Hera, and my duties are very clear to me heroes. My duties to Hera have always been my main concern. I'm only playing the villain just to pass the time. You have nothing to worry about. I'm not planning to use you and backstab you at the end of things. Not my style. I'm a warrior. And if I want to kill you, I'll kill you while staring. I'll kill you without trying to stab you in the back. Look forward to when we finally clash, Cape Crusader. Again. Until then, we are temporary allies. Bruce eventually got what he wanted. Excused himself by disappearing in the shadow of the room. Only light visible in the room itself is a small light from candles. So the room's not totally like a lot of light, but enough for him to disappear in the shadow piece. Leaving Diana with the villain by her request. Bruce knows that Diana can handle herself. She just has to use her communicator to ask for backup if anything happens. Bruce doesn't trust the kid. He knows for certain that he won't outright attack Wonder Woman for no reason. He doesn't seem to be the type. After talking with him, finally. The first encounter with him was just a simple fight. And he sensed no treachery in his words. You mind if I can see it, just to ease my mind? I don't see any harm in it. Consider it's just us. Sorry about that. He does that a lot. Izuku opened up the secret pathway that's located in his loft, or study, leading into a stairway. The stairway leads to a big room underneath the manor. As Diana could see, the medallion in a glass casing in the middle of the room is filled with magical circles over the place, even on the glass container that contains the medallion. I've never seen magical defenses like this before. It's one of my own creations. I've always found a fascination using magic for sealing things. They eventually walked out the secret pathway. It's getting late. I suppose I should be going now. Nonsense. It's late. I would feel bad letting you go unaccompanied at such an hour. As one snap of his finger, Amber came out of the shadows. Amber here. We'll show you to one of our guest rooms at the manor. Diana was surprised to see a woman in the room. She didn't even notice her approach. She just came in, she was just in the room, like she was there to begin with. Of course, sir. I would be delighted to. Please, Miss Wonder Woman, was it? Follow me and try to keep up. The place can be quite confusing at so late at night. Diana didn't want to be rude, but yet, this whole situation is odd for her. To sleep in the same building as a very dangerous villain. But considering they're allies, temporary allies for right now, I see you're curious why Internal offered you to stay in one of the guest rooms. Yes, this whole situation is not what I normally would experience. Villains normally don't be so civil with us members of the Justice League. I've been with Internal for a very long time. I still can't predict what he does. He does things to his own liking, and not always I understand his methods. I remember this one time he fought a man to the death. Then a second later, they were laughing at a local inn, drinking beer, like they're friends. Here, I can guarantee you this, Wonder Woman. He's a very odd one. That one is. Be one of these villains you so eloquent put it. But you gotta keep in mind, this is just a hobby for him. But with his abilities, he could have easily been a hero. I don't see why he's wasting his potential by taking this path. There's only one simple reason why he decided to be a villain. It would have more conflict. It would provide him with more battles. Things might have changed when it comes to humanity, but Internal hasn't changed ever since he's gained his immortality. He's a warrior through and through. He lives for the thrill of battle. Been docile over the years, but don't be mistaken, he's still a fierce warrior. You seem to care a lot about him. Of course I do. He saved me. He's like a brother to me, and I'm like a sister to him. What exactly are you? I could tell you're not human. You might look human, but my instincts are telling me otherwise. You're very observant, princess. I am a vampire. Or should I say, Diana. As Diana was surprised, but not too surprised. You know of me and my heritage. I'm fully aware who you are. I wouldn't be good at my job if I didn't. It's my responsibility to gather information on possible threats to my boss. I take my job very seriously, Diana. Not only do I arrange all his meetings, I make sure he stays out of trouble and protect him as a bodyguard, even though that's unnecessary nowadays. Here we are, Diana. Breakfast will be at 7. One of the maids will come and get you in the morning. Enjoy your stay and have a peaceful sleep. As Amber left Diana to her own devices in the guest room, Anna gave everyone an update and told them of the situation so far. A lot of the Justice League members working weren't so keen on the idea of her staying overnight in one of the villain's guest rooms. But Clark was more understanding and relieved everyone's suspicious and telling them he doesn't believe nothing will happen. Eternal didn't seem to be the type to do such things, as he's already agreed to join forces. So it would make no sense for the villain to attack them. And Clark does see good in Eternal, like he sees in everyone. But the decision was ultimately Wonder Woman, so no one is going to change her mind. They might challenge her, but she's not going to change her mind. To Diana's relief, the bed was extremely comfortable. It didn't take long for her to fall asleep when she laid onto the soft, warm bed. The next morning, at the dinner table, you see a strange scene as you see Eternal drinking his tea and eating breakfast while Diana is doing the same. Thank you for your hospitality. The food looks delicious. You're quite welcome, princess. And the staff do an excellent job. I heard you had a run-in with the young justice. I want to thank you for not injuring them. I heard Superboy. I heard you hurt Superboy's pride, though, but he's mostly unharmed. It was quite all right. I had fun playing with the brats. I have no doubts I'll be engaging in battle once again in the near future with them, no doubt. But currently we have a common enemy that needs to be dealt with. What exactly do you do for fun outside of, being a villain? The normal things: study magic, read books, and spend time in my garden. Wait, you have a garden? Nature, yes, I do. Nature has always relaxed my body and mind. That's why I prefer living away from civilization. That's why this manor is surrounded by the vast wilderness outside the boundaries of Gotham City. You're not what I originally expected. Hope that's not a bad thing, princess. I didn't mean it in a bad way. Diana, I'm old. I've lived a very long life. I've seen many wondrous things, also terrible things. I don't see good and evil as black and white. The world is not that simple, cut and dry. Man's world may not be cut and dry, as you say, but I don't approve of how you've been doing things. I figured you wouldn't. Every time I have retaliated against some of you heroes has always been in defense. Like I killed anyone from the Young Justice or the Justice League. I just killed a bunch of low-tier criminals. That's exactly why most of the team's not keen on working with you. I really don't see the big deal. They're just criminals. It's not like they're people. I can tell you truly believe that. Of course I do. Do you ask yourself, when you killing a rat that has infested your home, if it's the best course of action? Of course not. They're pests. I see no difference between a rat and these criminals that have infested human cities all across the world. I know men's world has their problems, and some of the laws I might not agree with, but what you're doing is clearly crossing the line. I might have my conflicts with many of the laws that the world men have. An outsider myself, I could understand some of your methods. That doesn't mean I agree with them. Let's have this conversation somewhere more relaxing. As Internal extended his hand outwards, when he stood up from his chair, as Diana gently grabbed a hold of it, as he guided her to a more appropriate area, Izuku helped her up and guided her to the outside garden. The garden is pretty huge. Diana was quite impressed by the garden. She could tell Internal did a lot of work cultivating these plants. It's quite beautiful. That it is, princess. You got to understand, Diana. You are not part of this world. You never have been. We're demigods. And normal mortals should never interact with each other. Just look at what happened with the Germans during the Nazi era with Hitler. That's a prime example of a demigod going mad. That's why I'm always careful when I am interacting with people in general. So I take it Batman left you around to keep an eye on me. I do apologize for that. He's suspicious. I have a feeling he's always suspicious, Diana. Diana couldn't help but giggle at that statement because it's so true. Diana thought coming here she would hate his company, but she's actually enjoying herself. Internal is very polite and never once looked at her like she was a piece of meat. He's treated her with respect and always looking her in the eyes, not the chest, like most men do. A few days has passed. Diana found life in the manor on the complex quite peaceful. Diana's been having a hard time seeing Internal as your typical villain, like Lex Luthor. She finds internal motives to be very villainous, but she also finds them very odd at times. She can't wrap her around Internal being a villain for mere entertainment. But she understands somewhat, understanding why his motives being a villain, being forced to fight a lot. As a warrior herself, she could understand the appeal to that. Diana was going around the manor, just exploring. There is no restricted areas, so she has free range around the whole manor. While Diana is exploring, Internal was practicing some of the magic spells that he got from Athena, from one of the several magical tomes. Izuku made a slight mistake in the magical circle before he noticed it. It was already too late, as there was a white flash of light, followed with a loud explosion, as Diana and Amber came running into the room, filled with smoke. Smoke finally cleared, enough for her to see Internal. Amber was quite surprised to see Internal. Shrunk back, as his age was reverted back to when he was 6 years old. Sir? Why are you so tall, and what's wrong with my voice? Why is my clothes so big? I want to look at your reflection, sir. As Amber picked up Internal in her arms and stand in front of the mirror that's on the side of the wall, Izuku sees himself in the mirror as his eyes widen, as he realizes that he's 6 years old once again. Even his brain was reverted to a 6-year-old. Fuck. Anna couldn't help herself, seeing Internal fun size, and swooped him in her arms, against her bosom. Amazon, you're crushing me. Please let go. As he doesn't need to breathe because he's immortal, but he does feel pain. Sorry about that. You're just adorable. I'm not adorable. I'm a powerful villain. That would be so, but you're not very intimidating in that form. What exactly did happen, sir? Internal pouted. I was practicing magic, and one of the spells apparently, I made a slight error in the magical circle, and a chain reaction went off. And this what happened after the aftermath of what happened, and this was the result. I'm no magical expert, sir, but do you think it's permanent? It might be permanent, or it might be temporary. Dealing with old magic like this is very unpredictable. Can you still change your appearance with illusions? Diana let Internal go as he walked in the middle of the room and tried to use his magic to change his appearance, but nothing happened as Internal has a frown on his face. Internal goes through different spells that he could cast that won't cause massive destruction. He found out only magic he can't use is illusion magic. There's not much I can do about that, sir. But you, mister, you need a change of clothes. Clearly the clothes you're wearing is far too big for you. While he was getting picked up, he crossed his arms and huffed as he's pouting. Only did the spell revert him back to his younger self, but like I said before, but it also affected his brain, where occasionally he will act like a child, now and then. The vampire assistant simply finished picking up the small boy in her arms, and took her leave to get her little boss a change of new clothes. You're enjoying this, aren't you? I have no idea what you're talking about, sir. I would tend to believe you if you didn't have a smirk on your face. That's where we're going to stop it. Hope you guys have a good night and day. Judge my time zones. And I'll catch you in the next video.